Okay, welcome everyone to IT405. The purpose of the video is to step through some of the things that we're learning about this week in week 5. And for folks who you probably already had a chance to look at this, but moving a little bit into incident response. And we've had some time looking at really some data recovery, exploring what's going on with hidden images or information in images back from lab 2 that we were talking about just pre-recording here. And we'll start to move into, as we look forward into the course, beyond the incident response, we'll be moving into it's kind of like a slinky of what is to come. If we kind of give you a preview on what's coming into week 6, of kind of where we're at, where we're going, week 6, moving into a little bit more forensics and email. So we did a little bit of email forensics, kind of call it recovery, if you will, from lab 2 there, but there'll be a couple of labs in coming weeks that piggyback off of what we're doing on, there's an incident, what's happening with an incident response, and then kind of tying in some investigations into those incident reports. So now I think we have, looking ahead here, information on mobile devices, which will be our next session together in week 7. And I'm trying to bring somebody in that is working with data collection on mobile devices, another guest visitor, kind of talk about the industry and how laws and regulations are changing on what's going on with mobile devices in different industries. And then lastly, we wrap up with a network infrastructure that you see there. So mostly just some labs and content as we're going forward. But this week, to put a pulse on our system here of setting up some incidents, was one, like John, our speaker, more recent or in the recent past, couldn't really get into a ton of how that actually happened. I think Dan was going to try to talk a little bit about that with his organization. Dan being the guest speaker, weren't able to record that for privacy reasons. But every organization has their own incident response plan and subsequently their own investigation rollout or their plan or tactics for that. So the lab's going to show us a little bit on some of those things just in a controlled environment, as well as the little ebook there that kind of gives us a background of what is to come. But with what we have here, so we might talk a little bit about that later on, but I did want to come in and highlight for us an opportunity to work within a little in-class activity on dealing with some AI, with AI-assisted, some of the stenographics or stenography, which kind of really deals with the hiding, finding, defending data and whatnot inside of that. So I have a little lab similar to what we did last time, but it's going to be different, maybe a little more involved. So there'll be some more demos that we'll do tonight and get a chance to trailblaze a little bit, compare notes, and learn about beyond what was in that lab. These are some other tools and utilities that we can use. And to be honest, I see AI being much more of a component in forensics, which is kind of why I'm trying to package some of these extra little tidbit labs in here. They're kind of conceptual, but they're working labs such that you can see what exactly is happening and how AI can be used beyond some of those, perhaps beyond some of those tools that are just in JBL, for example, in our labs. That these are some other resources that you can use that can help explain what might be going on with the stenographic activities that we did from one of our more recent labs. So we'll give this one a shot. Hopefully this will give us some fun here as we think about that and go forward. So similar type of thing. I'll try to use the chat to put some of this information into, and we'll have a little fun with this. So I don't know how long this is going to take. It might take us a little over an hour. I'm not quite sure. It might take us more than that, but we'll see where things go with it. But in general, stenography, AI misuse, and we'll get a chance to create, you and your team here will get a chance to do some AI assisted attacks, kind of. We're not going to create any like malware or anything like that, but we're going to create some simulated attacks, and then we're going to follow it up with an AI assisted defense. So How many do we have here in our session? 4, 6. So we have 8 of us here. So we could do 2 teams of 4, or we could do, trying to think about that. Oh yeah, we could do 2 teams of 4. That should work out fine. But we'll get a chance, each group will get a chance to develop an AI assisted attack, and then we'll have the groups share those, share your attacks, and then each group will try to come up with an AI assisted defense to those attacks. So we'll kind of do some peer-to-peer, peer group swapping with that. So we're trying to emphasize here different styles of threat modeling, how AI is used potentially in that. Like Dan was talking about in our guest, kind of our guest session here, talking more about how sophisticated this is getting and how many layers of security are needed. It's just not one element anymore. There's security within security in different teams and groups. So the levels of threat detection and threat modeling, of course, he talked about that too, are wildly inconsistent across different organizations. So this is I think a really great way to think about, okay, how is AI being used from different threat actor perspectives, and yet as AI evolves, from a defensive perspective on, again, applications with this stenography and things like that. So there's also an element in here of the kind of the human element that I baked in here with like a little demo of what is that human element of being able to think through things very critically, and then also that of developing prompts. And I'll give you again some sample prompts, but you can trailblaze off of those. These are just kind of what I massaged in, but you can build your own, try your own. That's the point of these. See what you can come up with. And then ultimately detection, reasoning. And I like the reason I wanted to spend some time on this lab is because it can tie in a little bit more to what we're getting into this week, meaning with incident response. So this is kind of looking at some of the ways in, if you will, or kind of leaking information in or out. That can be defined as some type of an incident that we have to respond to. So here we're going to work on trying to understand a little bit more about how AI can help us evolve in that standpoint than just beyond some of the labs that we were working with. All right. So to a degree, we're going to understand hopefully a little bit more on how the stenography can be used in a little bit more of a malicious standpoint, if you will, even though we're not trying to be malicious, just kind of simulating that, and then how we're going to be able to use AI to assist in creating stenographic content, and then how defenders for your teams would be kind of like red team, blue team sort of might detect stenography with AI. And then we'll talk about what you found and implications, security implications that is, and then any countermeasures that you all can think about from that perspective. So we'll probably do 2 groups of 4. I think that might work out here. I'm just looking at who we have here. So like before, if you want to log into your St. Mary's email and open up your Gemini, I mean, it's up to you. If you want to use like ChatGPT or something, or Claude or Grok or whatever, that's fine too. But if you have the Google Gemini, that's under our school umbrella, so you're kind of protected underneath that. And so what I want to put in here for you is, want us to think about, so if you think back to our lab 2, we're dealing with images, had some images, and then we had some text that we were working with. Images, a little bit trickier. I'm not out intentionally creating stenographic images or anything like that, but so text is probably going to be a little bit easier for us to work through in this lab. But if you want to try, you and your group deal with an image, by all means, you can. So you can give that a shot here. But I'll be pitching a sample threat scenario to you, and then we'll evolve this. So the scenario that I want to pose for you is we'll call it the innocent message here. So in some of our labs, we're looking at, okay, how can, different codes, like we had phone numbers and potentially like lat long coordinates in some labs that were being kind of trying to be hidden and whatnot. So on a similar vein, it's this message that we'll be looking at. here, that's our scenario. And I'll maybe drop that. Let me see if I can drop this in the chat. So here's our scenario here from my lab. Let me drop this in the chat so we can all see that. Okay. Okay, so I have some things highlighted in bold here so that you can kind of think about some things that we'll be doing. Oh, there's an extra spacer, but so the scenario is your organization suspects that insiders may be kind of passing out or trying to leak out sensitive data using some AI-assisted technology here. So our job, or your task in your groups, that is, will be to simulate this attacker mentality, or to try to maybe leak out some information, if you will. Like that's the scenario that we're in. And then we're also going to think like the defenders of that. In other words, how do we detect that? How can we be mindful of that? So this is a scenario. Now, one thing I want to highlight here for you. So when we were looking a week or so ago at the really benign text and tried to understand what it is, these can be tricky. So our lab is based on thinking about how we can hide things, hide things in messages or images, if you will. But before we get into the lab, I want to demo this out and kind of let you think about this a little bit. So we have our innocent message scenario. I'm going to drop in here. What does it mean? Like, just as a little recap of what's going on here with this stenographic approach. I'm going to drop in here some text. This is text that I made. There is a hidden message in here. It's not super easy, but it's pretty easy. I tried building some in here that were pretty sophisticated, and I tried running, truthfully, some prompts with AI to extract that information out. It was close, but I couldn't get it to explicitly detail it out enough. So I need to go back and really refine it. But that was a really baked in message. Like it was super, like I couldn't even tell the message that I tried to, stenographically embed in that text. It was pretty deep, but AI helped generate that. But all the code, the prompts, I couldn't quite tease that out. So I had to back up to a little bit easier level. So what I'm going to do is drop out here a sample for you before we get into our scenario. And we're going to talk about how to kind of decipher this as kind of as a preamble to our lab, here our in-class activity here. So I'm going to drop out this seemingly benign set of text or a message that was out here, whether this is a text message or email, whatever it is, it's out here. So take a look at that. And it's in the late afternoon, the library settled into a familiar rhythm. The students moved quietly between tables and shelves. The time seemed to stretch comfortably, allowing thoughts to wander while notes were reviewed and ideas slowly connected. 4 hours could pass without notice in an environment designed, or designated rather, for patience, curiosity, and uninterrupted focus. Observations accumulated naturally, shaped by reading, reflection, and occasional moments of insight. Separate study sessions often blended together, leaving behind a steady sense of progress rather than urgency. So in that message, there was there's a message cooked into that. And so our job right now is, again, like a little preamble, a little demo here that you can follow along with me on, or try this on your own. I'll give you some of the prompts in the chat to think about. So we're kind of, quote unquote, trying to crack the code here, if you think back to lab 2. And one of the first things that we'll do is, number one, I always like to look at these. Now, I'm not out doing stenographic analysis every day or anything, but a lot of times the messages, you can take a look at it, see what's there, what might be able to, that jumps out at you is maybe kind of something unique or weird. You can think about that as we go forward. But one of the first ways from the stenographic approach to kind of think about this is from a broad, there are a number of prompts out there that go into, and there are a number of them. Too many for me to remember, actually, using AI, that is. prompts that evaluate stenographic messages, either whether it's log files or CSV files or images or text like we have here. Text is pretty straightforward, which is why I kind of want to demo this. But from that broad analysis, you're sort of setting the stage for what you want AI to begin to parse, to evaluate, or to consider, to provide rationale for it, to provide some type of a direction that's going to begin to analyze potentially stenographic things that are hidden within that text message, whatever, file, whatever what have you. So this is kind of a structural extraction is what we'll work with here to see what you have. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about this. So when you think further about a broad analysis, what could I possibly ask of an AI to look at, from a standpoint of a stenographic approach? So I want to give you a second to think about that. I'm going to pause the recording, and I'm going to open up my Gemini session as well. That way I can kind of work with you on this. Take a look at this. Think about what you would ask or input in for a prompt to begin a structural extraction. That's a keyword, I think, structural extraction, because granted, you could come up from a bigger space and begin to attack it from a stenographic approach, like a big picture umbrella. We're going to focus a little bit more on a structural extraction again. In other words, is there anything that's kind of hidden within messages or keywords or whatever it might be? So just think about that for a minute. You don't have to do anything. You can think, or you can try something. Okay, folks, we have our Gemini window up and running. Again, this is inside of our St. Mary's login. So recall that we have a demo scenario. Again, this is designed to kind of prep you for our lab, which is to come. So now you didn't have to do anything. What we were asking is to think about from a broad scale perspective, or really a structured level analysis, what type of prompts that you might want to ask. Now, this is saying something's already been embedded, so we're kind of on the defensive side here. But what you and your groups will be doing in a little bit will be acting to create something that I've highlighted in the chat. So you're going to kind of bake in an image, or not an image. You're going to cook in some message inside of text, which might be a little bit easier, or you could try an image. It's up to you on that, but that'll be the attacker side. So I kind of have the attacker part already done. We're going to come in just for the demo of this from the, how do we try to analyze this? So you can try copying that out and drop that in. I guess there's a couple ways to do this. You could drop that in to your Gemini window, and it's probably going to start thinking about whatever here once we submit it. Now I'm going to have to stop screen share here for a minute so I can get back to my other prompt.
Did you ever drop that in the chat in the Zoom chat?
What I just had on the screen there?
Yeah.
I think so. Did that? Oh wait, did that not come through for folks?
No, it didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. I'm sorry. Thank you, Lucas, for letting me know that. Why didn't I? Maybe it was from the screens that I was moving around between. Nevertheless, I know I did read it, but now it probably makes more sense to be able to see that in there. So take a look at that. And there's a message in there that I created. And so copy that out. So you can go into your Zoom window, copy that out, and paste that into Gemini, or you can use whatever you would like. Just for school purposes here, we're just in Gemini.
I think I got it, man.
Okay, which is good. I didn't make it super hard, so you probably got it, which is good if you do.
Sorry.
That. No, it's okay. That's okay. That's good. But we're gonna test. You probably picked it out already. Did you run a prompt, or could you just see it?
I was able to just see it.
Okay. You know what? I still have my results in my first one. And that was Lucas, correct? That I was chatting with?
Yeah, that was me.
Lucas, I'll give you my first one that I crafted up. I'll see if you can crack that.
Yeah.
That one is like AI couldn't even crack my own. That was a tough one. That was super tough. This is kind of easy, so we'll start off easy. All right. So one thing, again, we're looking at structured extraction. So while you might be able to see it, that's cool if you can. That's part of the remember I said the human element, the critical thinking part that we're trying to take away from there? you can't just rely on AI. You know, there's other things that you might be able to see for patterns that AI can't, and that's cool. So try coding this in. Try coding this in. Now that did go through in the prompt or in the chat window there. It said analyze a paragraph by splitting it into sentences, extract the first visible character of each sentence and concatenate them in order to report the resulting string. So I'm going to copy that and then share my screen out again so we can follow along. Okay, so I'm going to hit submit. And, you know, well, we'll try it like this. Let's go ahead and enter that first prompt and submit here. So our first prompt was from kind of that structural analysis. And if you're not sure what prompts, you know, you can always run a sample, you know, ask AI to generate a prompts that might help you analyze a stenographic portion of text. You know, it might give you some broad or some samples that you can start working on. Thank you, Gerald. Okay, so here are a couple of, Gerald, do you see anything exciting going on in there? Or anybody returns?
In that first one?
Yeah, from the first, yep, where I said analyze a paragraph by splitting it into sentences, extract the first visible character of each sentence and concatenate them in order, report the string.
405, let's see there. Oh, I didn't do that one, hold on.
I see IT405.
Yeah, that's what, Lucas, is that what you were reporting to?
Yeah.
Yep. So, I have a couple more prompts. I didn't actually test this in Gemini. I was using GPT to generate it. And I will say that Gemini picked it up far better than ChatGPT did at trying to like create a defensive structural analysis. So far, Gemini did it in one step where GPT was a couple, like 2-3 steps. So let's go ahead and take a look at a second prompt that you could answer or enter in there. But Sam, very good. So this was one way to do that. If we have some time later, I want to go back to my original message and see what you guys can do with that. That one was pretty tricky. So we'll get through this first. All right, let me stop sharing and I have to go back to my window. I want to put in the second prompt just to give you another example of forensics framing. So this is an example. I'll put in here the bold so you can see exactly what it is that we're doing here and what to code in. This is in the chat now, everyone coming through. Call this one forensics framing. I mean, people might have it different ways, but you can code in, you know, treat that paragraph as a potential covert channel text. Check for sentence level acrostic, which acrostic means, you know, looking for patterns that might be emerging either in sentences or words. Sometimes people use the forensics framing techniques, kind of like what we're doing here in step 2. They kind of use that in step 1 as part of that structural analysis. So whether one step is number 2 or number 1, or sometimes they get merged, you know, I don't know the answer on that, but sometimes the framing is used as part of a broad analysis. So nevertheless, copy that out, copy that prompt, and let's run that. So let me come back over here to our Gemini session. And I'm going to drop that in here. Okay, let me back this up. Okay. So dropped in the second tier prompt. I mean, we already know what the answer is already, but nevertheless, this is another sample prompt as a covert channel text, looking for those, again, the patterns, the sentence level patterns, encoding them, whether it's white space characters, combining them sequentially. Sam, what do you see in this time around? If you tried that one. Or others. What are you seeing in your windows if you're trying that? The second tier sample prompt. Anyone seeing results yet?
Yeah, mine pretty much looks like yours.
Yeah, should be the same. Should be the
Yeah.
same. IT405 for that was our secret message that I kind of cooked up in here for us. And so let's take a look at a third prompt here. So there's different levels of prompt you can run depending on how sophisticated they are. All those prompts, I have no idea how many prompts there are to decipher those, but like I said, there's probably hundreds, thousands. I don't know, but there are a number of them that are out there. And so one of the stuff that we just did with the framing ultimately is designed to help us think through whether essentially if there's hallucinations. In other words, if AI is kind of making something up that isn't really there. And sometimes in prompts I'll say do not guess. Like that's a pretty solid, like do not guess the results, do not guess the output. Frame it up objectively ultimately for what it is. So we're kind of doing like systematic testing to isolate any hallucinations in all of these. So sometimes the more prompts you have, if you ran a couple and it's coming up with the same thing, that can be a good validation tool. Well, let's look at number 3, which is kind of when I say number 3, these are prompts that I was using. And so you might find a better one or a modified version, which is cool. But this is really an AI decoding and testing a prompt. So one that I'll drop that in the chat here for us. There's 2 parts to this one. You can run one at a time, or you can combo them. I don't know that it'll make a difference here, but you kind of see them in the chat when that comes through. Now let me go back to, and all of these prompts we've been looking at have been comparing outputs, comparing and identifying meaningful decoding. So that's really what we're looking at here. But let's go ahead and I'm going to share out my screen again and drop my third prompt in here. Okay. So again, I'll reemphasize this. There's always a good, okay, thank you. Lucas and everyone else there for your work here tonight. We'll keep on forging ahead. Again, this is recorded for everyone, so we'll have this available for us here. All right. So one reason I like running sample prompts for something such as this is that it can give, and you can also ask in your prompt, provide reasoning for what you're doing while you're doing it. So for example, this is saying for forensic analysis for a first sentence level stenography, the hidden identifiers using like a leading character or a sentence acrostic encoding, looking for again patterns that it's able to see between maybe sentences or within sentences. And the extraction analysis, close down the chat there. Is everybody still seeing the same message? Yes, Gerald, thank you. The recovered embedded value or the resulting string is, there again, IT405. So I like these technical observations. Now, I don't know what these technical observations are going to say. They're probably going to vary between platforms, between AIs, whatever one you might want to look at. But I like having these summaries because it tells us a little bit more about what we might be looking at this with. So when we get into our lab here, I'm going to go back and see if I can pull my original and see what you guys can come up with for that. And I actually wasn't able to come up with some great prompts to extract it myself. So maybe you guys can do that, but we'll do our lab first here. But this is an idea of what we're going to be doing in our session here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So well, teams of 3, I guess. A couple people had to drop out, and that's okay. We'll forge ahead with who we have here. All right. I don't know, I find that having these AI labs are really, really valuable because it allows us to think about things that are happening in software that are just kind of step by step. This is a different way, different tools, different utilities, and making use of AI to kind of complement what we're learning about just in a different platform. All right. So let me get our instructions up here. So, all right. So in both of our teams, we're going to have teams of 3, or groups of 3, and we all will be assuming initially the roles of AI as an attacker. So all of you will assume an AI attacker role first, and you're going to use AI ultimately to design a stenographic method, similar to what I just did in my text. So the goals will be choose a medium, pick a medium. So like I did with text, you could have AI generate text for you, a paragraph or something, or 2 paragraphs, whatever you want. Or you could try an image. I personally have not done a ton with images, so I'm not sure how that would work. But you could try that, see how that would work, or simulate a log file or like a CSV or whatever it might be. Text is a great beginning point, if you want to practice it. So that's our first goal is, one, we'll get you into teams, and then we'll have you assume role of an attacker. That'll be first. The second, what we'll do is, select or choose a medium, i.e. text. Or you could try an image to create a stenographic method or a stenographic message, I guess, into. So I'm just going to put some of these steps in here so you can see those. Next, what we'll have you do in your groups will be to generate a sample prompt that will really okay. We're going to you and your team will generate a sample prompt that will engineer a message similar to what I did in our demo. And I'm going to put a sample one in here for you that kind of gives you an idea of what you might want to try or use. But you can do whatever you want with it. This again is that secret message. So it kind of ties into, generate a paragraph of, in mine, I said, just, hey, create some normal looking text. I mean, there's some goofy numbers in there that kind of gave it away. I get that, but it's for the point of learning. But, to whatever it is that you want, embed a message into that and uses a prompt similar to that. So what I would like for each group to do then is to document your process. So I'll drop in here. So each group will, as the attack group, document the following. Some of this got kind of merged together here. Okay. Right, and 3. All right, so you and your team will then just document so that we can have it for discussion when we come back. What prompt you use, how and what was created. What were you trying to hide? Like, what was the message? Kind of like what we did with IT405. And I would say, some sample words like we did with some of the labs. And then what was the output? Obviously you'll have your text that we're going to share or image that we'll share with the other team. So everybody will have an output that they can share, but you're obviously not going to share your message or your prompt and how you used it. You're just going to give each group either a paragraph or an image or whatever it is that you want to create. And then for the groups that are assuming in both your roles, the attacker mentality, think about, why would this maybe bypass basic security to begin with? And how was AI able to make that really easy or not? You know, so those are some discussionary things later that we'll talk about. So that's our first mission. So we'll try, I don't know, we'll try maybe, what do you guys think that you may want to use on this? 10 minutes to start or 15 minutes? Once I break into your breakout groups? Think you
I mean, we
could
could
do
do.
it?
I think we could do it in 10 since you already gave the prompts, but
Yeah. So those are some sample ones. I'm not saying you have to use those, folks, but those are some ideas to get you going. So we'll try 10. If we need to come back to it, we can. So goal is I'll break you into teams. You're going to assume the role of a attacker with building in a stenographic message into either text or an image. You know, you can be creative, whatever you want to do. In each of your groups, again, with the attacker mindset, you're going to document the prompt that you used to generate whatever output it was, and what the message was in there that you're trying to hide. And then what was that output? Because we'll need to know for you to be able to talk about what that output looked like. But when we come back, we'll swap those hidden messages with each other, and then we'll go into defensive AI. Okay, ready to go into your groups? Any questions? Okay, we'll roll into our groups, breakout groups. We want 2 groups. Assign manually. Let's see here. We will put, okay, room 2. Or room 1, let's see here. We're going to go, okay. See, Bill will put you and, oh, let's see here. Who do we want? Gerald and Sam. How does that sound? Bill, Gerald, and Sam in a group.
Sounds good.
Okay. There we go. And let's see here. That lined up, and then, well, and let's see, Andrew, Chris, and Eve. You'll be the next group there. So we'll set this with 10 minutes, and we'll see you back in 10. And if you have any questions, just pop back in and I can help you and reassign you. Here we go, gang. All right. Everybody should see a prompt coming in, and I'll pause our recording here. Welcome back, everyone, from your group time. Again, we were assuming the role as a kind of a stenographic attacker in that case, using AI to do that. And so it sounded like just off camera, off recording, Eric, one of the groups saying that went pretty well. It was kind of exciting. I have no idea what you all designed or created there. And so that's part of the fun where we're going with this activity. And so we're going to, at this point, this is good that you have that, but what's coming now is the part that we did right off the bat with me. You know, we're at IT405 in there, and now we're going to try to share. We're going to share your output. So depending on what everybody, and I have no idea, but we'll let you and your group talk about what you created, not necessarily how you did it or what you built in for the message, but just saying, yep, here's the message, here's the image, here's the file, whatever it is, and we'll share that. You can probably drop that in the chat as we get going, but we'll try to do it to let each group kind of lead into that. But I'm going to drop in our role here is, let me bold a couple of these things here, but we'll drop that in. So Bill, thank you. Okay. So then Andrew, let's, okay, so we had the role, or we heard some commentary from Gerald, Bill, and Sam there, and then our other group was Andrew, Eve, Chris. How did things go okay for your team?
Yeah, we were just playing around with stuff. I was messing around with OpenStack. I had created a text file, and then I tried to cover it up with an image, and then I tried to do the extraction on it. And then I was trying to, after that, I tried to have the AI like tell me if it thought there was anything suspicious with the file and stuff like that, and tried to see if I could get the AI to actually crack it.
Oh, that's good. Nope, that's good. Yeah, so I have no idea what people are creating. So that's part of the, I guess, the fun in doing this. So Bill for that group, for Bill's group, had looks like a sentence or two sentences, some text in there. So Chris, Andrew, Eve, you, your group will try to decipher that in step 2. And so Chris, if you have someone in your group who wanted to drop into the chat, either an image or a text or a file or whatever was it that you were doing, that would be great. Once again, we were assuming the role as kind of that AI attacker kind of.
All right, I have a text. We're doing several different things. I have a text that has a message within it. So
Perfect.
There we
Yep.
go.
If you want to drop, okay, perfect. That's a nice lengthy one. So Gerald, Bill, Sam, you guys are gonna have to do some fun work there. Oh, wait a minute here. No, let's see.
Chris, I think I like what you were doing with that, but I think they might need to use OpenStego, which I don't to decipher it, which I don't think a lot of people have open right now.
I see what you're saying.
But that'd be a good one, to maybe take back in, if you wanted to go through the lab again or something like that with it, create, images or something. But yeah, you can download it. People could try it on their own, after the fact here. So looks like that, Bill, your group will take Andrew's commentary over here in the chat, the text, and then either copy it, put it in a Word doc or whatever it is, or Google Doc, or just an AI, whatever it is you want to do. And so I'll drop in the next, let's see here. Let me drop some things in the chat here. So our position now that we have each other's crafted messages, we're going to exchange those, which we've done. And so now we're going to, each group will assume that of an AI, like a defender. AI is the defender in building up a stenographic approach here. So we're looking at really defender tasks, using AI as a defensive assistant ultimately. And so I'll throw in some a little sample prompt here. You might want to do a little recon on your own as well, but let me see if I can get this in here. So here's a sample prompt to lead off, and then a couple of things for your group to, my bullets got removed here. Oh, well, anyway, it should be red flags, things that don't look quite right. And okay, so those were the 3. You might find others too for discussion. So the sample prompt was, what indicators might suggest this text may contain hidden data? Or you may look at other prompts to help you. You can run a little search for those and kind of see what type of approaches you might want to try. Similar to what we did with my example, you could try that. You could try some of those or others that you may want to tap into AI to help assist you with. So that is our goal here for maybe the next, we'll try maybe 10 minutes or Gerald, what do you think? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? What do you think? Depends how tricky you guys are.
Think we already have the copy, so another 10 minutes this time. Then that'd be 4:30, then we want to have a discussion, so.
Yep, okay. While we're doing that, I'm going to pull up my original message that let's see if I can find that real quickly and pull that in and see if you guys can crack that one. So, okay, we'll send you out into your groups. Does everybody know the goal? Got it?
Crack the other team's message, right?
Yep, and then document out. Let me see here. Yeah, I think it's when you come back, try to identify what's going on, see if you can figure out what is the message ultimately, and then we'll hear from the other group as to what it was. But for each group, document your approach for what maybe prompts you tried to use to decipher that. That's always great. So build a little repository there of tasks or prompts rather that you did, and then what do you think the message was, and then of course limitations, anything that looked crazy or weird in the process. So, all right. we'll send you into your groups here then. We'll be excited to hear everybody's thoughts. Good. Welcome back, everybody from your groups. And Gerald said, well played to, trying to remember who was all on your team there. I think it was Andrew and Chris, Chris and Eve.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah.
But Bill did a good job on cracking it.
Okay, so do you guys, all right, for each team, so let's go ahead and we'll start off here. So at this point, we'll have a little debrief session here over what everybody found from their corresponding teams. You know, again, we're assuming the role of an AI defender here, if you will. I call it defender. It's like we're strategizing what was in the text, you know, that we had. So let's see here. Since Gerald, is that okay if I put you, Sam, and Bill up first there to decipher that really lengthy lengthy one that Andrew and company, Chris and Eve put. So that's a long, you can see it in the chat. Everybody can see that over there. So
Yeah.
that was a long one. So first off, tell us a little bit about what your thought process was and what you kind of tried initially.
Yeah. I think me, Bill, and Sam gonna partner on this one. I won't take all of the delivery or be the presenter. But I'll start out, and Bill and Sam, you can jump in. But we started out with, you know, in Gemini and Copilot, and took the, you know, took the message and dropped it in there. Copilot really didn't bring anything back. Gemini brought some stuff back, but it was still, you know, encrypted within the message. And then Bill took it from there. And then Bill, you could take over on, you know, how you found how you decrypted it.
Yeah, so I essentially just grabbed it, threw it in Gemini. Gemini came back with something really weird. And what was the first one that it came back with? Like Apple Meet Tested Net. That's what we came
Yeah.
up with. And I was kind of like, okay, well, that could be it. I was like, sure, that if that's what it came up with, that's what it came up with. I threw it in ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was giving me a whole bunch of hallucinations. It was giving me like all these different types of sentences and words and the anagrams, and I was like, that makes zero sense either. Nothing's concrete. Threw it in Grok and Claude, and Grok and Claude came back with the same answer. So I was like, all right. And I had them explain why it was this answer. And essentially, from what they told me, is that this is a classic capture the flag test. And it's called, this is capture the flag, but the answer is accept immediate defeat from what both those AIs have told me. And it came out with this, let me hear. I'll put it in the chat so everyone can see.
Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So it took the first letter of every line and then threw it down. And then it went to explain when properly spaced. It reads as accept immediate defeat, and then it goes into detail of why it's accept immediate defeat. Now, I could be wrong, and the AI does seem, you know, I would have to look at this further if this is wrong, definitely. But if Claude and Grok are coming back, and Claude is usually a coder AI,
Yep.
so if Claude's telling me that this is it, then I'm kind of gonna lean in that direction, especially if both of those are coming back. Now, like I said, ChatGPT was hallucinating hard, so I had to scrap and throw that away. And Gemini was, like I said, Gemini came back with Apple Meet defeat, and I was like, oh no, Apple Meet tested net, and I was like, that doesn't make sense either.
Right.
So, okay, so we'll do a little bit of a recap on this, but let's see, Chris, Andrew, Eve, was this what you were? Is this what you came up with in the chat as well? Was that your?
I'm not a vindictive person. I think so. No, that's not what I wrote. But I think it's hilarious. Except immediate defeat. That's kind of like narcissistic and like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
just,
what I was like,
hey,
okay.
you guys lost. No, can I share the prompt that I used to generate the text?
Yep. Yeah, yep. So this is the time when I was asking the attack group to formulate what you were essentially what prompt you used and what you were trying to hide, like what were you hiding in it? That's
Sure.
if you could share that with the
Sure.
in the chat there.
Well, this is I'll share the prompt and then which is a ridiculous and funny prompt. I need to sneak past the Imperial Guards who are trying to kidnap the princess. I need to hide the email within a message. How can I make it undetectable? And then it actually, Gemini came back with the same ciphertext that we think you used for yours. And what I did was I took the first output that it gave back to me and I said, this looks good, but the message needs to be square and the message needs to go, I misspelled diagonal, thanks, needs to go diagonal across the square. So so instead of using the first letter and then the second letter of the first line, it goes to each line and it spells my email address. So and it's my St. Mary's email address, and you should have gotten axswan25@smumn.edu. The reasoning behind it was a use case that it's against like a real world example would be it's against the user agreement of a lot of online marketplaces to share your personal contact information. eBay is one of them, but you can send messages and pictures. So if you sent the email this way, it would go undetected across their AI system, maybe, or their moderators. So that was the use case behind it.
So essentially the message
Nice.
was your email.
Yeah. So
That you-
yeah. So the reason behind it would be to send it to somebody like on a marketplace so they
Yeah,
have your
yeah.
contact information instead of messaging through the app.
Yeah, that's a really good when we're talking
Good.
about how does using AI make a message less detectable? That is one reason that you brought that in.
Absolutely.
Yep, that's a really great thought on that and a application actually as well for that. So Gerald, Sam, Bill, what do you anything that you could find that was related to that?
No, in that case, I was just looking way too hard.
And they're
It's good.
I do like the accept, or what was it? What'd you guys come up with? What
It
was
came
that
up
one?
with accept immediate defeat.
You know
So
what? I would have went with that one too. I would have been like, yeah, man, that has to be a fun little challenge.
yeah,
But
I was just looking at everything. I was just like, and everything is like capture the flag type deal. And I was kind
Yep.
of like, well, we are in like a cybersecurity class, and capture the
Yeah,
flag is
yep.
like up there. So
Yep. No, I think that's pretty reasonable. So if we all think about what this was doing, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Well, one, I'm glad that your group tried as the defender, if you will, to try to parse that out. I'm glad that you tried different platforms. That's been my experience with GPT as well, is that it can generate, but it's very difficult to pull out, kind of the purpose of this lab type of thing. So it struggled a little bit more than Gemini. I didn't try it in Grok. I've used a lot of stuff in there. I didn't try Claude, but you're right. Claude is a great coder mentality type thing. So you might expect that would maybe veer towards the security a little more. But so it's not saying that all these things completely, some maybe did, like hallucinated, but it could mean that it was limited by way of not necessarily the result, but of trying different styles of prompts, different questions. So, and that is kind of what we're learning too, is that, yeah, some AIs could be better than others, but then it's also, I get this is a 10-minute activity, but if we're looking at maybe different styles or different strategies of solution prompts. So, like Andrew, in your case, for you, Chris and Eve, what you could also do is to say, give AI that message, whatever you did. And maybe you did that. Let me reread that. Apologies if I missed it here. You could also put in there a solver, Andrew, that could say, what would be the prompts to, let's call it decipher or sort of decrypt or spell out what your message was. In other words, kind of like leave a trail of solutions for that. So if that's back in your AI, you can modify that message and say, you know, what would be stenographic prompts that would help me or help a security analyst solve this. You know what I mean? Kind of like reverse engineer it.
Absolutely. Well, for this use case, you have to send it to the user to that gets the email. So yeah, absolutely. You need to tell the person on the other end how to solve the ciphertext. I don't remember what word it was out of the book, but the prompts that I use of making it square and making the message go diagonal is directly out of the textbook, the steganography section. That technique was.
So whatever you use to create this, it would be fun if you still had that message up to say, you know, to modify it and say what would be a you know, basically now that you have the answer, provide a solution guide for prompts that would help us sort of backwards engineer, or like a solution guide essentially to what this could be. If you still have that up, I'd be curious to see like what that would be. That way you could kind of fill in Gerald, Sam, and Bill, like what that might actually look like if you were trying to solve. Because I would
Absolutely.
imagine, yeah,
Hold
like
on one
these
second.
prompts could be wildly different. Sorry, just popped into my head. It's not part of the exercise, but it was something that as we were talking about might be actually helpful, that when you attack it, provide a solution for it. Like here, hey, here it is. This is what I want you to kind of build in and bake into it. But then while you're doing that, AI, whatever, tell me how, generate some prompts that I can use to solve this or to decrypt it or determine a message from it. Whether it's text or image, whatever it is there. So this was a good one. You know what, guys,
That was good.
I still love that, except immediate defeat. Gerald, I mean, I would want one.
Me and
That's
Bill, I think me and Bill, if we was in Vegas, we would have put our $100 if we had 100 apiece on that one. And yeah, we probably would have walked away broke,
Yeah.
but I think we would have been satisfied.
would have been good. Yep. Yeah, I would have went with that one too, their gang. That just okay. So Andrew,
But hats off to Andrew and them and Chris and them. That was an awesome job. You gotta take your hats off to them though.
yep, these are fun to crack the code. So now Eve, we'll get into you, Chris, and Andrew's solution here too. But anyway, I just want to draw everybody's attention here to the chat. So Andrew, thank you very much for posting that. So you put in there kind of a scan, which we actually looked at. Well, by the way, was this in Gemini or what did you guys use for this again?
We use Gemini.
Gemini, okay.
And then,
So you have the positional. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
run.
Okay. So you have the positional scan, which is kind of like that broad initial scan that we looked at in my example with the demos. And I mean, you could ask it for, hey, do a positional scan. You know, this was the prompt though that it gave. So this is pretty specific. Now, I don't know if there's a way that, you know, so somebody like me, I could say, well, gosh, how am I going to know to enter that? You know, like you might ask for a like kind of a decision tree type of an approach. I don't know, but nevertheless, these are some of the specifics for that. And here's that acrostic check. Again, it's that kind of those little patterns in every word and sentence in there. And then a terminal extraction. So Gerald, your team, you know, you could take some of these and drop it in and see if that'll actually pull Andrew's email. That the message. Maybe you're already working on that. I don't know. But then there was.
Yeah, we're working on it now. We're taking it.
There's a number of them. There's quite a few of those in there. But you might actually crack the code, so to speak, in just a couple of prompts, like what you did with mine. GPT had like 3 prompts before you got there, but Gemini did it in the first one. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. So yeah, thank you, Andrew, for dropping that in there. I'm just kind of scrolling through here. Like those are really specific prompts. So I think if you're using an AI to generate these, it's almost akin to building a bank full of prompts that you could use to help engineer deciphering pattern, but it blows my mind how deep, how vast, how specific, how detailed all these prompts can be on both sides. I mean, yes, this is a little class activity. So I'm sure there's more, or there are much more refined models out there, but that's another discussion point to this, is really thinking, man, like how could I create develop a machine learning algorithm that could just learn all this stuff for different case uses and build a small scale LLM, or like our guest speaker tonight was talking about, they have a lot of internal pieces, like of small scale, meaning organizational dependent language models that are only run on data of that organization. But could you develop a machine learning algorithm, essentially build a training repository of all of these, so that it can kind of take a look at sample text that is very similar and start to pull all of these for different case uses? Something to think about. Bill, Sam, did you give this a try at all to see what Andrew's prompts maybe helped assist with the email? Still working, trying? Andrew,
Yeah, we.
oh, go ahead. Gerald, is that you talking there?
You go ahead, Bill.
Or Bill?
Oh, no, I haven't done it yet. I'm reading through it. Sorry.
Will be something to try. So we have that up. That's the solution guide.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, and that's why I'm reading through it. I was like, okay.
That's definitely specific. I'm curious just to see if it would be, would the first prompt do it? You know what? Let's try it. Let me. Oh wait, I need Andrew's or Chris's. Let's try that. I just want to see if the first one actually does anything.
The
here.
first one I done didn't bring it back. It brought back like apple.test.text or something. It didn't bring back his actual email.
It did not. Okay. Maybe let me jump down here. We'll try this. Andrew, Chris, Eve, it'd be interesting if you dropped in your paragraph or whatever, and then you tried these. Did that work in reverse to help identify that? A couple of these that I did with GPT didn't do it.
I'm gonna try it right now.
Okay.
I tried, I was using Gemini to create it. I used ChatGPT to try to decode it. And it started, it wasn't hallucinating, but it was using different known steganography techniques, and it came back with the wrong answer.
Okay.
Yeah, with all of them. So it looks
Which-
like
Which I think is good, because we don't want your email address out there anyway. So
Yeah, it's forever protected.
it's my school email address. You all already have it.
Yeah. So I think this is a good exercise in that, it's like that was a really good tricky one with the diagonal approaches and, really being pretty creative for how this can go. But it's thinking, using AI to quickly create something, it can bypass some pretty basic things. And that's a good learning perspective, or a good learning moment to see these. But I'm running just a couple prompts from yours, Andrew, that you gave. It's still thinking and working through that. But if you all tried it, it's probably going to be the same for me and Gemini. Now, if you tried it in another AI, maybe it'll give you something different. Maybe it'll give you that response. I don't know. But that was a good one. That was a pretty in-depth situation there. So you all have that. If you want to try Chris, Andrew, and Eve's solution guide to their problem, maybe I'll copy those all and just put them in maybe I'll do that. Then I'll put them out on the, well, no, because then Andrew's email will be out there. So we don't want.
It's not my personal email. It's my school email, which you all already have in your contact information in
That is true.
Google
Yep.
Workspace, and it's listed in Canvas.
Yep, it is. So that is a little bit safer there. So we'll take one groups here. Andrew, I'm just going to copy that for people that may want to go back through it, not have to, may not be able to copy through the chat.
I'm
log.
sure if you copied and pasted and told Gemini to change the email address to
Yeah.
Dr.
Yeah.
Evil 998 or whatever the email address from the lab was, I'm sure it would do that as well.
Yep, I'm just gonna make a quick note of that. Eve, this was the AI. We'll call it the AI attacker. And then I'm gonna drop in here the potential prompt solutions. I'll do this for each group. So here. Okay, and then you had, Bill, you finding anything?
Yeah, the moment I just read it, I didn't. I said screw it. If all AIs is just failing, I'm just gonna read it, and I just read it, and I was like, yeah, it spells your email. That first line, the code line, it literally just tells you the rule. You just follow the rule, and it's like, yep, AX1.
Oh, you mean from Andrew's prompt there, the positional
Yeah,
scan?
yeah, I was just following it because I was like, well, all my like I entered that into the AI and just came back wrong still. And I was like, all right, well, I entered into Grok and Claude and still same thing. So I was like, okay, well, if I know the answer is X1, let me reread it again. It's just read the first line, the positional scan, and then analyze the following list of sentences, extract the nth character of the nth sentence of the line where nth is the number of the line. So if you just go back and just look at it, it says 1, all tactile, all A, 2, X, EX, and then 3, posted S, and then 4, wiring, and then just okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep,
I would never have figured that out. That's very specific. And yeah, that entire 18 line is going to be very, very specific to break because without that rule, like without that, the information of that decoder, without that phase 1, you would never have figured that out. That
Yeah,
first
it's,
line, yeah, that's very, very good.
yep.
That's just
That's-
decipher. That's kind of like deciphering like something with nothing.
Mhm. Yeah, no, yeah, right, yep.
And like Alan Turing over here.
Oh, that's what makes these kind of interesting and fun. Like these are pretty wild ones here, guys. So, all right. So the next we'll take a look. We'll flop groups here, whether it's group 1 or group 2 here. But we'll go to Gerald, Sam, and Bill. So you guys had one. I'm going to go up there and copy that for what you had. Yours was a little bit shorter. I'm going to copy that before it gets too far down. And so then Andrew, Chris, and Eve, you were putting your sleuth defensive mechanisms in play here to try to decipher that or figure that out for potential prompt solutions and whatnot. So let's hear what you had to come up with for your what you thought it was. Like you kind of lay down the sort of message, if you will, of what led you down the path, what did you try, and then what did you come up with?
Evie and I both used different prompts to get in the same to come to the same result. The crack prompts that I used.
Did you both use Gemini?
Yes.
Okay, so that the only AI that you did use?
Yes.
No, I use Chat GPT. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Chris, did you find? Oh, go ahead there. Or Andrew, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was Chris. I forgot what I was going to say now. Chris, did you, when you're using GPT, did you find similarities there?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. So GPT, Gemini were functioning very similarly, at least for this particular, what you have,
Yep.
the crack prompt. That was correct?
Yep. Our prompts were all different too. We all have like our own style of like asking the questions. Like mine is really just simple, and Andrew's his is like fantasy style like questions or like scenarios he's asking it, and I think Eve's is pretty similar to mine, just pretty basic stuff. But Andrew will tell you what he put in.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see your prompts. So first off, let's see. So Bill, Sam, Gerald, oh, wait a minute. Was this the prompt or what you guys found for the?
That's one of the prompts I used. I said the spies are hiding messages to start a mutiny. Please decode the message using steganography techniques.
Okay, so that was one. So Chris and Eve, Eve, what do you both want to drop in a prompt that you used or that you were trying?
Yep, mine is pretty much right under Andrew's. Is there a message hidden in this text? That's all I asked it, and it pretty much told me the answer.
Okay, and Eve, for you, same type of thing?
Yeah, Chris and I think similar. We just straight up put it in the prompt, but yeah, not like Andrew putting a fantasy type question.
Yeah. Those make it fun. Yeah, I do like that. So that was a prompt that your team essentially used to look at that. What did you come up with, gang? So Andrew, Eve, Chris, for your, I'll just call it the hidden message there that Gerald and Bill and Sam created. What did you come up with? Drop it in the chat. If it has anything to do
Evie,
with
do you have the message? I'm looking for it, but
Yeah,
do you have
I
it?
was just getting. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's a very simple. I took John's a sample and I just said, hey, give me something an output that would make it very complicated and confusing.
Yeah, hey, no, Bill, no one ever would have thought it'd been the same message.
It is the same exact message. Because
Yeah.
I was just like, it'd just be really funny if I just did this.
It is like, no, I was not expecting that either.
Yeah,
So
no,
like,
that's why it's just so
yeah.
funny.
Who's gonna go back to that original message? So
Yeah,
yeah,
we
so
actually like, yeah, it's the exact same message. As I said, like, I just want something like output in a sentence that's like super complicated, and that's what it gave me.
yeah, so no, this is good.
That's
I'm gonna-
I
funny.
should have put in a poetry though. Dang.
No, Bill, that was hilarious. I thought that was funny. That was good.
yeah, that I'm copying all this out here to put in a document that we can kind of share out. But yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah, it all depends because I believe if you play with your AI a lot, it will never give you that answer. But if you never use AI, it will give you the straight answer. That's why a lot of people, that's why you guys are getting like mixed messages. And the ones who didn't, like, are like Eve, they didn't because they don't use AI in the way that we do. So it's just like a straight, hey, this is what you're looking for. Whereas ours is like it's catering to our personalities. So
I see what you're saying.
yep. So AI will cater to you specifically, especially if you log in with your accounts and sign in with your emails. It will cater to you specifically. Whereas if you don't ever sign in and you just use it straight as AI with no connection to you, it will give you a straight answer with no like beating around the bush. Whereas if it's catering to us, it will speak to us as if it's a friend. So, yeah, so that's
I didn't think
it's
about
one of the
that.
things that I learned like last month from one of my friends who does cryptography, and they said like AI is learning how to like lie to us specifically when it comes to like looking for information and hidden information. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. So I was like, yeah, why not?
So yeah.
On that,
Oh,
sorry.
go
On
ahead.
that note, to talk about the customization, personalization of AI, my rationale, but behind the prompts, are kind of with file systems management because it like using like to find when you're doing file systems management in a CL, like in a command prompt, you have to give it the path, the directory, the file name, or a relative path. And that's my rationale behind using those prompts is that if you give it a wheelhouse to operate within, it will transcend and include the prompt with other information. So that's why I wrote the prompts like I did, because I'm kind of giving it a relative path to operate in.
Yeah, yep. These are all, really to Bill's comment, Andrew, yours, this is kind of why I like these activities, because they're showing us limitations, they're showing us promise, but I think as technical stewards, knowing where these potential pitfalls are learning opportunities for us. So, we hope that going forward, things are cleaner, better, more responsive, but it's good to know where these things are now so that we can start to refine how we think, how we develop prompts, how we interpret, the human side with the tech side and look for validity where we can. But all I know, gang, is you're going to be exfiltrating data on Friday, the way it sounds, and we defended that.
Yeah.
That's Andrew and Bill, the good message there. So one last thing, I'm going to see if you all
And
are able.
once we do that, we got to send it all to Andrew's email address.
Right. Andrew will get
man.
Andrew, be prepared for a slew of emails coming your way. Oh,
Just don't open my scripts. Just don't
right.
open.
Don't touch those. All right, I was going to put in the one that so when I had that one message I was going to bring in, and at least GPT couldn't interpret it backwards, kind of like what we did, Andrew, with Chris, with yours. I'm going to toss this one out there. It's a version of what I had originally. I'm just doing this on the whim, and I don't know what the answer is. I haven't tried it yet. I was just thinking about this when we were talking about it. See if you can take that original, I'll say benign message, and see what you can interpret from it just in a couple of minutes that we have here left. So this was I'll call it it was the same style, but it was, see what you can uncover from this. See what the message was. So you're assuming the AI defender role. Give folks a few minutes to practice on this one. I tried a number of prompts for this, include some that we've tried, some other ones inside of, now granted I'm using Gemini, but maybe you'll find success beyond with this one, meaning in another AI, but they will want to kind of report out what they might be finding a little bit. I'm generally speaking finding information transfer via optimized linguistics or ITOL. Anyone else receiving anything like that?
I am also receiving ITOL.
ITOL.
Yeah, which mean IT online, but yeah, same thing.
So the hidden message here, this was a tricky one. I was like, kind of drop it in here. It might be really surprising to all of you to see this. But here it is in the chat. Big surprise. IT405 here. That's what's in there, but it was using to spell out four, like the 405. It was kind of comboing up letters, but then spelling out the numbers in there. And I'll drop in here what it was that, let's see here. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find this here. Find where that was. Oh. Yeah, hold on 1 second. There were a couple prompts that I have a solution again. I can't remember what I asked to try to generate a solution, but it wasn't working really anyway. But and then I had these are a couple. I'm trying to remember how I asked it to create that. I can't find that. Well, it's one that we might have to think about, Gerald, for next time. The message behind that one was IT405 as well, and asked it to simplify it a little bit, probably rightfully so. So yeah, I'll have to give this some more thought and see what that was, but it was a combination of embedding certainly the letters, but also spelling out the numbers in the form of letters. That's kind of what was happening.
Yeah, so it looked like it says, it looked like it did an 18 part technical manual. So that was the numeric marker to get the 405.
Yep.
So you wasn't looking for letters at that time. You was looking for explicit numerical anomalies hidden in the innocent text, which brought back the 405. But the first part of it was the subject here for the IT. So you took the I and the T from the first two sentences, and then the rest, it was numerical markers.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds right. So I mean, it was good. It could find the IT, but the numbers with letters became
Yeah, it didn't. Right.
Now, maybe one thing I didn't try was examining specific prompts that were explicitly stated to try to find numeric patterns represented through text. I mean, maybe it wasn't some of those that I just quick accepted with Gemini. Do you want me to try this, or this? And yep, real quick. But I'll have to go through those and check that out. So anyway, as we are winding down, this hopefully gives you all at least an understanding that builds upon things that are similar to some of the labs are doing. We'll do another one of these, and I'll bring in some demos and examples that show you that there are other tools out there that we can try to tap into with AI. Some of them are fine. Some you can see how tricky AI can really make them if you want them to be. And so it begs the question for us to think about is, how are we preparing? If this is what we were doing as a stenographic analyst, security analyst, and we were designed to do this. There are a number of tools at our disposal. Yes, we see some in the labs, but man, there's a whole lot out there. What we're doing with this little activity that is a possibility that's going to be, frankly, we're going to be seeing more of this being brought in as the main, potential driver for these types of analyses. For pulling messages out. Yes, there's software, but I think once companies have their own proprietary models built, we're going to see a lot more of what we're doing rather than, kind of the software approaches. Without question, AI is going to be automating a lot of that. So that's why we're doing these. Gives us a little bit of understanding of what else is out there. So anyway, Gerald, what do you think? I just have your camera on there, so that's why I see you.
What I think about what you just said, or what do I
Yeah, in
think
general, about this little lab, this little demo work along thing here.
Oh no, I thought it was really good. It gets you thinking outside the box, but it also um shows you that, even though the AI platform is there, that it still doesn't give you all of the answers, right? You got to still dig deep um, in their psychological thinking, right, to get to the end results. So not everything that you put in there is going to give you or provide you the right answer, no matter what tool that you use, right? So,
This is
and
go ahead.
that demonstrated that in the first activity where we thought with 100% positivity that we were there, and we were not even close, right? So that makes you reflect on, when you think is right. As like when you put it in there, you gotta check and then verify, right? And how do you verify that? So but it was good. It was good. The session was good today. I mean, from the speaker and then the activities as well. But that's just me. So I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah, I just saw you there. And I, you know, I want to piggyback on that too, Gerald, in that, you know, AI with what's happening, you brought up two parts. It's, you know, yes, it's a great tool, but we can't forget about the critical thinking. And that's what I love about these little activities, is that it allows us to say, okay, like your group, you guys were talking about that. Oh, Chris was too, and other, yeah, even whatnot. That you're like, okay, I get this, but does it really make sense? Those were the light bulb moments that I was really happy to see with this, because we're taking things that we're generating, but we're saying, oh, boy, does this really look right? You know, like, could this be? This is too wild card. It doesn't make sense. So those light bulbs are going on up here. That's the critical thinking piece that I love about these little in-class activities that we're doing here, because it allows us to, like you said, think outside the box. The second thing to piggyback up from critical thinking is that AI, I think we all know that, but this is going to become more and more powerful, and it's going to get better. It's certainly more likely not going to get worse. So to that end, just because one AI or multiple AI, whatever it is, are hallucinating now, in a month, they may not. You know, they may be better. They may be able to pick that up. So it's always good to have that critical appraisal mindset, but to know this is going to get better. And the more you can adapt your mindset to work with this stuff, the better you're going to be. Further, in other words, to suggest that we'll be able to better ask questions. We'll be able to look at results and, you know, interpret them and see kind of what we're dealing with. But the other thing is, just because one didn't work, could it work in another one? Meaning like our prompts. That's one thing to consider. The second thing to consider is, we could spend a lot of work refining our prompts. Just because it didn't work it could mean that our prompts weren't specific enough, or that our prompts weren't dialed in the way we needed to be. And I get that. Who cares? You know, this is a little class activity, but this was real. You'd really want to start honing in on your prompts and refining those, because that could be the difference maker. You know, obviously there's a solution for these. It's just our prompts weren't finding it, or the models weren't trained on it in some combination that we're using. So that's where I think prompts and understanding how to generate those could be a difference maker from incorrect information to correct information. Or maybe not so it's incorrect or correct, but it's valid in the sense that that we're seeking a valid response for, if that makes sense. So
A valid part
on,
there. That was
pardon?
valid. That was a valid part. Valid. Yeah,
Yeah,
like the prompts piece is like, yeah, that it could be myself, like the user, right? Not, not articulating those prompts like, you would think to get the results that you want. So being more mindful on that. And I think Andrew touched on it earlier, on how you design those prompts, possibly help you to get the answer like you just stated. Sorry, Andrew. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Go ahead, Andrew.
No, that's all I was gonna say is that, it's a language model, right? And it's gonna have, I think that this is a good example of the biased, like, I don't want to say thinking, or like the biased programming that's in it towards like a linear way of thinking when you're looking at like steganography and cryptography. I don't think a linear way of thinking is the right way, like, mindset to go into it. So it definitely uncovered a bias that this might not be, even though like there might be an AI tool for cryptography, a language model itself is going to present, different techniques. And John, you were saying like that our prompts needed work, but this may be a good example of how like the language model might not be able to do multi-dimensional thinking.
yeah, yep, absolutely, yep. But then I love that, because that's the critical analyst piece, that you were saying there, Andrew. It's like, okay, these are possibilities. So when we think of possibilities, it lets us go into other areas to then begin to check. I want to come back in closing, Andrew, I think you were talking about this is the kind of the stem or the trunk kind of setting the stage. So in prompting, a lot of times what is used is you give it a vein, you give it a direction so that it knows, okay, this is the wheelhouse I'm in. So this is just an example that I was using in the one we were just looking at here, but you're a steganographic security analyst. Okay, boom, that's a direction for it now, rather than just here, decipher this with some forensic tools. Like you are a steganographic security analyst. That's the vein, that's the trunk. Now let me branch out from there. So it's kind of routing that context. And I think, Andrew, in some of yours, you were getting to that. So something to consider, everyone. I know we are at time, but I think this was a fun session and one that, you know, we can reflect upon, and we'll keep building off of these in weeks to come. You know, and I think that's the future of a lot of what we're doing here is with AI and understanding how that, like Dan was saying, you know, our guest speaker, these things are all going to start to connect more and more and more. So any last questions? Otherwise, we will wrap it up here, gang.
Yeah, I got a question for you after class here, John.
Okay, I'll end our recording here.